There's a Gemara in Beya, Daf Daled Amud Beis, that talks about if eitzim fall off a tree on Yom Tif, and therefore they become muktzah, you're not allowed to move them, burn them. But if they fall directly into an oven, Gemara says that you can add more eitzim that were set aside from before Yom Tif. You can create a taruvus, and then it all becomes mutter, becomes batal. You can nullify the isser with the heter. So the Gemara says we have a klal called ein mevatlin isser lechatchila. That you're not allowed to lechatchila nullify a davar that's aser with dvarim hamutarim in order to create a mixture to be materit. And the Gemara says over there, mukta is an isser d'Rabbanan, over here is an isser d'Oraisa. Rashi says that the makar of this isser is a mishnah in Masechtas Trumas regarding truma, that the halacha is in order to nullify truma, if it falls into chulin, you need one truma connected 100 pieces of chulin. So if one piece of truma falls into a bucket of 99 pieces of truma of chulin, the whole mixture is considered as chulin, as truma, and it's aser. And says the Mishnah that if someone comes and he's meisev chulin, in order to reach the ratio of 1 to 100 to be mevatel the truma, so if he does it b'shoigeg, it's mutter. If he does it b'mezid, it becomes aser. That's the halacha of the Mishnah. There's a Gemara in chulin. The Gemara brings a machlokes. What is the ratio that you need in order to be mevatel iser? One man Yamar says 1 out of 60. The other man Yamar says 1 out of 100. And the Gemara says that both of these man Yavrim, the source for their shita is from the Zroya Bishla, which is the ayol, the carbon of a nazir, that had a very unique halacha. The Zroya, the back of the animal, was given to a kayin, and it was also to a zar. The front of it was given to the bailim, was nachal bailim. And the ayol of a nazir had a unique halacha that it had to be nisbashal, it had to be cooked shalem. The entire animal, could be was cut before or not, it's a shayla, but the entire animal had to be cooked together. So the part that's aser lizar for a non-kayin was cooked together with the part that's mutter to a non-kayin. And based on how they learn the mitzias over there, one man diamar comes out as a ratio of 1 to 60, and one man diamar comes out as a ratio of 1 to 100. That's the Gemara. We see clearly that this case of Zroya Bishla, of the ayol of the Nazir, was a case of being mevatel iser. The Gemara later on asks that there's the shita of Rabbi Yehuda, who holds that min b'minoi is not batal. Even two items of the exact same type, if mixed together, or multiple items of the same type are mixed together, one's aser, the other ones are mutter, does not become mutter. Min b'minoi is not batal. And the Gemara brings a source for Rabbi Yehuda from a pasuk, and the Gemara asks, why doesn't Rabbi Yehuda learn from the Zroya Bishla? B'shela, thank you. The Zroya B'shela, that it's, I don't use the Tufi's Gemara, that you see clearly that over there it's mutter, you cooked it, and it's min b'minai. So the Gemara says it's a chiddush, and therefore Rabbi Yehuda would not learn from there. Now, what does it mean that it's a chiddush? So the Ran brings the machlokes rishonim. The shita of the Baalei Tosfos is that this isser of mevatel isser lechatchila, of nullifying something, is ba'etzem only an isser d'Rabbanan. And this that the Gemara says is a chiddush. It's a chiddush that there's a mitzvah to do it. It's a mitzvah to cook like that. That's the opinion of the Baalei Tosfos. So look around, there's a shittas haravid. The Ravid says, the L'chir we see from here, that there is an isser to be mevatel isser lechatchila mid'oraisa. And over here there's a chiddush that is permitted, that you're allowed to do it. The mitzvah and you're allowed to do it, but be'etzem the isser is an isser d'oraisa. So the machlokes, Baalei Tosfos and the Ravid, whether or not the isser to be mevatel or davar aser lechatchila is an isser d'oraisa or an isser d'Rabbanan. The Ran fears ice he says, even according to the Ravid, who says it's an Isser D'Oraisa, this that the Mishnah in Maseches Trumos says that b'mezid it's Aser is D'Rabbanan. Even the Ravid would agree that Mid'Oraisa b'di'eved, even b'mezid it's mutter. So this that Chazal gave a knas that b'mezid, that's clearly Mid'Rabbanan. I once asked many years ago, I asked Rav Yisrael Balsky, I finished the shmuzin once, and I asked him as a bacher, I said, does the OU know the recipe for Coca-Cola? So he said, no, we don't. I said, okay, so how do you give a hachsher? So he told me the answer, and the answer is, I think it's well known, that he told me the OU receives a list from Coca-Cola of numerous ingredients, I don't remember an amount, and the OU ensures that everything on that list is kosher and nothing other than anything on that list is allowed into the factory, but they have no idea what on that list and at what quantities actually goes into the products that they produce. That's the system. But he mentioned to me that Rav Tuvia Geffen Zatzal, who was the previous Rav HaMachshir to Coke, he did know the recipe, but since he was nifter, it hasn't been given out. That's what he told me. So who is Rav Tuvia Geffen? Tuvia Geffen was born in Kovna in 1870. He learned in Slobodka, received smicha from one of the Roshis of Slobodka, I don't remember who. Then learned in the Kovna Kollel, smicha from the Ridvaz, among others. And in 1903, he moved to America. He was a Rav in New York, he became a Rav in Canton, Ohio for a short time. And in 1910, he ended up becoming the Rav in Atlanta, Georgia, which Dr. Pemberton invented Coke in Atlanta, Georgia, which was and still is the corporate headquarters of Coca-Cola. And he's written numerous Sfarim, and one of his Sfarim printed in 1935 called Karnei HaHoid, at the very end of Chelik Beis, he has what he writes is a tshuva b'davar mashka Coca-Cola. He writes out what happened. And he says over there that he was approached many times by numerous people to please ascertain the kashrus status of Coca-Cola. It was very popular, people were drinking it. What's going on there? So he says he went to the factory, he made inquiries, and he found out what's going on. And he writes there's one ingredient that he nicknames, he gives it a nickname, calls it Murius, whatever, he doesn't say what it is, I can't say what it is, and which was Shuvnis Bar to be animal-derived, I think, glycerin, which he held as a davar pashut, is a davar aser. So he says, I found this thing, it's an ingredient, and it's mamash a davar aser. Okay, he says, but they told me in the plant that it's only in very minute quantities, less than 1 per 1,000. And he says, I gave it to a chemist who confirmed that in fact it's only found within the Coke in less than 1 part per 1,000. Okay, so motor aser. So it's a case of bittul iser l'chadchila. So the Shulchan Aruch paskins that if I'm mevatel iser b'mezid, it's aser for me, but it's mutter la'acherim. However, it's aser for someone that I'm mevatel it on their behalf. So if Reuven is mevatel for himself and for Shimon, it's aser for Reuven, and Shimon is mutter for Levi. That's the halacha. What is the halacha if I'm mevatel it in order to sell it? I don't have anyone specific in mind. I mean mevatel it, I'm selling a product, it's for the general public. This is the machlokes. The Shittas HaTaz, he brings the B'Shem the Marshal. The Taz holds B'Shem the Marshal that is only dafka sheyoda zeh is batel avuroi v'nichalei. The one you're being mevatel on his behalf knows about it and he wants it. However, Reb Kiva Eger, Often Art, brings from a Shuvas Rivash, not like this. And he brings the Rivash, he says, even if someone's mevatel stam, whoever wants to buy, it's as if he's doing it for everyone, and it's aser, as Reb Kiva Eger, u'deloike Taz. So often machlokes Taz, Chayin Reb Kiva Eger. What is the halacha if someone is mevatel on behalf of whoever wants to come by? There is a Ramosha, in the Tshuva, who on this Reb Kiva Eger says that even Reb Kiva Eger would agree that if roiv of the buyers are goyim, it's still going to be mutter as long as roiv of the goyim, if roiv of the buyers are goyim, you're doing it on behalf of goyim, and it would still be mutter. Oh, so the this is only levaila if it was being sold by yid. What happens if it's a goy? So Is the guy better? Is the guy worse? What's the halacha? So there happens to be a fascinating Ridvaz. I think the Ridvaz is a pretty unique shita. Come on, everyone, I think it's chalik on him. But the Ridvaz was asked this question: if it's mutter to buy something from a guy that the guy was mevatel. The Ridvaz says, and I read the lashon. He says, "Yidua she'aser." Why? To have a bishar she'loikchay at the time that you're buying it mina akna from the guy, ki ilu mevatle lechatchila. Dr. Ridvaz, when you buy it from the guy, it's a ma'isa as if you're being mevatel lechatchila. And he says a reason. And his reason is, it says, this that Chazal were matter at bidi eved, this that they allowed you to use at bidi eved, was mipnei a hefsid moment. Said here, there's no hefsid moment, don't buy it. If you buy it from the guy, you're in the category of lechatchila, and it would be awesome. So that's the shita of the Ridvaz. There are many achronim that are chelik, from Noida Yehuda down to Ramosha. So I think it's a das yachid. I think there are many chuvas, many poskim that Nema not like this Ridvaz. There is a very famous tshuva for Ramosha on another note, which is pertinent to this. Ramosha was asked regarding a plant that manufactured margarine. It was in Brussels, Belgium, happens to be. And the shaila was as follows. The mashgiach would get there on a Monday morning, and they wanted to manufacture starting right away. However, they wanted to do hagala. They wanted to kasher the kelim. Now the factory was closed Sunday, Shabbos, Friday. They closed on Thursday. From Thursday till Monday they were closed. Thursday, before they closed, they washed out all the machinery using boiling hot water. However, the mashgiach, in order to make it home for Shabbos, could not be there. He could not be there Thursday and make it back home for Shabbos. The question posed to Ramosha was, can they rely on the kashering, on the hagala, that the Gayasha factory did themselves Thursday? Can we begin manufacturing with a hechsher Monday morning? So Ramosha says that me'ikr hadin, you don't need hagala. Why? He says he gets involved in the question of why is it aser to cook in an Eini ben Yaima of a guy? What's the aser? It's nice in town of Gam. What's the problem? It's the Rashba, Shtikol Mashma, it's maybe it's Mevatel Is Lechatchila, Ramosha, Namazon, maybe other Rishonim. It's like an Isser Gavra. You're not allowed to do it. And if you do it, Chazal asered it as a knas. But says Ramosha that for a guy to do it, this is a factory owned by Goyim. It's a factory owned by Goyim. Factory owned by Goyim. There's no knas on a guy. Me'ikar adin, the margarine was made with the hashkacha of a mashkiach watching, his kosher ingredients. Me'ikar adin is kosher without hagala. That's Ramosha. Zart Ramosha to give a hechsher on such a thing, that if a yid was doing it, it would be aser, and it's only mutter because it's a guy, mechur hadavar, says Ramosha. You can't give a hechsher on something. You want to know if you're allowed to eat it? You're allowed to eat it. So l'chayra, that would be an applicable idea over here also. Whether or not the coke is kosher, maybe. Could he give a hechsher on it? Kenzan mechur hadavar. And there's really a much bigger problem here, which is what he gets very involved in his tshuva. Is a shittas harashba. There's a rashba and a tshuva in Ratio Dalid. He says a big yisoid. This that we say that something is batal b'shishim, even if it's not neisin tam. That's only, I'll read his lashon. Ze einoi. I'm sorry, the case he's talking about is not batal. Why? Sharei ikr kach. It's ikr, the way in which you manufacture this product is by putting in this thing that's not kosher. So even though it's batal, if this is the way in which you make it, Dr. Rashba, we don't say batal. V'chol she'ikr kach, any batal b'mi'utai. If it's an ikr part of the process of making it, it's not batal. V'chein das ha'rayvid. And he says batal b'riviyah, batal b'rayv, the fizu derech mikra is only derech mikra. V'chol shenis arev derech mikra lo yechmiru bay ad shehei bay b'nei tam. However, avol kol shedarkon la'aseh iskein, if it's a derech to do it, asru ve'enoi batal b'miyut. See, if she does a rashba, this clearly was part of the recipe. Coke was doing it; they did it for a reason. Otherwise, they would have saved money. They would have left it out. This is part of it. So, is this mutter aser? And maybe we'll see in a minute, but Knira, the Beis Yosef brings down this Chuvas Rashba at the end of Shin and Dalet, and Knira from the Shulchan Aruch, he goes with it. There is a Noidib Yehuda who brings this Rashba and the Ra, and based on a Ran in Avodah Zarah, he says that it's Mavor from there that are Rishonim that are Chilek. And the Mela, he wants to be Mekel not like the Rashba. Knir also not like the Shulchan Aruch, but the Noidib Yehuda wants to be Mekel not like the Rashba. That even if it's part of the Iker ingredients, it's still mutter. And if you go through the Shulchan Aruch says, his lashon is Kol HaMashkim Shal Goyim, any drink that Goyim make, Shedarkum La'ariv Behem Yayin or Chaymetz Asur. If it's a derech for them to do it, it's Asur. It's not batal. The Magen Avraham Menuchas Pesach, Knira goes with this Rashba, could be only on the Rabbanas, but he definitely brings it. Question what he means over there. Only the Rabbanas, also the Reisas, but he definitely goes with this Rashba. The Noidib Yehuda does not go with the Rashba. The Birkei Yosef goes with the Rashba. I found Moshe goes like the Noidib Yehuda. I found that Henkin wants to mach with the Rashba. He goes to the Shuvas. It's like in all directions. Not much half of Klai is going with the Rashba, and half of Klai is going now with the Rashba. I found the Gilyon Marsha on the Shulchan Aruch. He says, even though Stam Yain is batal, that's only if it's nafal b'mikra. But kivan shedarkam, laseis b'hem yayin, v'zu svaras harashba, and the Ravid. However, he brings the Ran and the Yehuda, and he says yesh lahakal. So again, the Gilyon Marsha goes with the Noidib Yehuda. So what's there to do in such a case? Can you give a hechsher on such a thing that's tolan azar grace machlekes rishonim? So he writes in his tshuva that he was mamash faced with this question. Everyone was drinking it anyways. It's fine, but could he put his name on it? He obviously wrote this tshuva well before Moshe. I mean, Moshe will be alive then, but this is printed in 1935. But he seems to have been struggling with this mechur hadavar Indian also. And he says, "V'hashal fi divrei harashba v'haravid, pshita da'aser l'chol yisrael lishtois hamashke anal, hu deha b'hanida shelafneinu b'hamashke Coca-Cola, ataruva shel isra ene derech mikra. Ach kanu aderech l'sakin hamashke, v'chein heim oisim tamid." That's how they do it. Hu davar she'ikroi kach shenoisnim. They put this myris thing, that's this glycerin ha'aser tamid. They always put it in b'chol yom. It's not derech mikra. Kahai gavna isra eni batal lo'ilam. And he says va'av shanoidib Yehuda in Shuvas heivim migdali harishonim shacholikim al rashba v'haravid v'las lehu hachsvara. He says mi yuchal achriya ben harim gedolim ke'ela v'lidchois adeya shal rashba v'haravid v'tashbatz. He says, what am I supposed to do? Give a hachsha such a thing, connected the rashba and the ravid and tashbatz. What was taka that eats over here? So he writes, everyone's drinking it. What am I going to do? Everyone's drinking it. Canada. You can't stop Klai from drinking Coke. Apparently that was a given. So I'm trying to find the heter attempt. And he says, with Hashem's help, Matzasi heter. Nachain va'amiti. I found a heter nachain va'amiti. And he says, he goes through the whole Shakavataya, and he ends off v'al piatzasi, following my advice, his chilul hishtamish b'beis achareishesh, they changed the recipe in the factory, and they started using vegetable-based glycerin. And from then, based on Tivya Geffen, who got Coke to change the recipe. And he says, U'lechein, ata now yuchlu lahanois v'lishtois, Me'amashka Coca-Cola, everyone could drink the Coke. Af, even those Hamahadrin B'Yosra, those that are makbid on Mahadrin could drink this Coke. Go ahead.